Just as we were getting into the area where these goats were, we look across the valley and there's a huge grizzly bear, and you know, he was probably 3 miles away, and you could tell he was just a horse. He looked like a Volkswagen coming down the mountain.
And I knew that Luke had gone around to look over this next little rise, and he didn't have a rifle with him.
And it didn't take him long to cross that valley. He covered 3 miles in a matter of about probably 5 minutes, and he just kept coming.
So our group is separated, we've got no way to talk to each other, and Luke doesn't have a gun, and this bear is just on a mission right for where we are. I mean, I think Cory and I had each chambered around at that point.
At one point, he stuck his nose up in the air and was sniffing around, and all of a sudden he took off running towards us, and nobody could quite figure out, you know, what he had smelled, if it was us or something else, and we were sure hoping it wasn't us.
There are people in this world that go looking for adventure, and then there are those that live it every day. Alaska Outdoors Television. Experience Alaska like never before.
The guy I'm hunting with, my buddy from college, he drew this pretty fabulous sheep tag here. We're in a trophy management area. We're camped 17 miles back.
Luke is I guess a second generation Alaskan. His dad grew up here, and so he and his siblings were raised entirely in Alaska. In a hunting and an outdoor sort of lifestyle, and for them it was definitely, you know, meat to eat. Like they were entirely subsistence or meat hunters. When we met, at that time I was a lifelong Alaskan, but I really hadn't done a lot of outdoor activities, and I hadn't hunted at all. It was something that Luke obviously had so much passion about from the beginning, and he was so excited to share that with me. And so if I was willing to go and try something new, he was happy to have me along. It was a gradual thing. I mean, it started with 1 and 2 night trips, and then the trips progressively got longer.
So it's about 7 p.m. and we've done, we think, about 15 miles, and we've got about 2 more left to go.
And so it's definitely something like Luke had done this his whole life, and there was a big learning curve for me. But it's something that we also moved into together as a couple.
This is a great way to travel. And look up at the sky, there's the blue over there.
Well, good. I gotta get back to paddling though.
I meet more and more women who wish that they could get into hunting, and they just don't really know how. It's kind of been a man's game for a long time, I think, and you know, it's my hope that if other women can see that I can do it. I mean, I'm a girl who didn't grow up doing this. I didn't fire a gun for the first time until I was 23 years old. So if I can do this, anybody can do it. And anybody can be getting out there, you know, with their family and putting meat on the table.
Been to Kodiak twice, and lots of trips around in the interior, hunting Dall sheep, caribou, moose.
Mountain goat, black bear, grizzly bear, Sitka black-tailed deer, and that might be it. In the fall of 2010 was my first trip to Kodiak on a mountain goat hunt, and I did not harvest a goat, but our hunting partner did, and we had butchered the animal and were coming back down the hill. The terrain was quite steep and very slippery, and the fog had come in, and so everything was just a little bit misty and wet. And Luke and I made a decision to sit down and kind of do a controlled slide down the hill, as opposed to risking staying upright and falling down. And because of the fog, I don't think we realized that where we were going down the hill was steeper than where we'd gone up. I got going too fast, I was out of control. I was attempting to flip over and try to self-arrest, and I hit a rock and fractured my lower leg in 2 places. Both bones were broken. The fine folks at the United States Coast Guard came and got me with a Jayhawk helicopter. Unfortunately, the terrain was too steep to allow them to land that chopper, and so they had to take me up in the rescue basket. You know, did a hoist to get me into the chopper and back to medical care.
We flew in from Anchorage to Kodiak, and from there we took a float plane out to a high alpine lake. I called up Cory to see if he wanted to come along with us and help fill the plane, and just because he hadn't been to Kodiak before either, and so it was just trying to get some other people to go with us. It's always nice to have a couple extra people around if they're willing to go.
since my fateful trip off the mountain in the helicopter, we had planned to try to go back and try to be successful. And when we found out that Cory was interested, it was a good fit for the three of us to try to go together and bring at least a couple of goats home.
It started with a phone call from Luke. He knew I'd been planning a hunt like that for quite a while, and he just happened to be setting one up and needed somebody to come along. So
we actually wanted to land on a lake a couple miles away, but the wind wasn't favorable for landing in there, so our air taxi rolled, and he said, you know, you can go somewhere else, or I can get you in this lake a couple miles away. You can still hunt relatively the same area. And we said, sure, why not? We'll go there too, as long as you can get us in there. So. The thing is about float planes, when the weather gets bad and you want to go back to town, that time you absolutely can't. So you have to make sure you have good gear, because when the wind starts blowing and it starts raining and down to the deck, they're not going to come get you. So you're kind of on your own, especially at those times. So you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row.
Anytime you're flying out in a bush plane like that, you've pretty much got to be prepared to get weathered in. And I mean, it's something we talk about, something we plan for. You always bring a little bit more food than you need, warmer clothes, a change of clothes. It's trying to weigh out, you know, how much weight allowance do we have, but also what gear might we need to stay longer than anticipated.
This is an older MSR, the air spring, and it does pretty good, but there's a lot better systems out there now.
It's the Sawyer inline. It's basically just a inline filter. You drink it as you go, or you can use it like a gravity filter, which is what Becca's doing up there right now, filling up our other flatter. So just let it hang. You know, no pumping or nothing required. Just go. So. We landed, and of course you can't hunt the first day you land, so we kind of just went for a little bit of a walkabout, trying to get the bearings and where the goats might be. But it was, even when we landed, it was pretty cloudy and everything, so we kind of just hung around camp.
Yeah, how much elevation do you think we gained?
To get here, 1,651 feet. Socked in?
Yeah.
Next morning, we probably should have stayed in the tent, but we went looking for goats anyway, just because we were excited. Looking at a couple of billies, way in a not good area. Cory spotted them, but it looked like billies from this far away.
Apparently in a different zip code.
Yeah, and area code.
At least we're seeing goats.
Yeah.
On the first day.
So you saw two billies. Anything else over there?
A couple nannies and kids. A little closer, but nothing super good, I would say. At least not for me and Becca. Cory the animal could probably go over there.
It wouldn't be so bad shooting them, but after they fell,
Yeah.
it could be interesting.
We came from the tent and kind of gradually gained elevation all the way around here. We're seeing some goat sign, which is encouraging. Nothing that looks really fresh, although we're seeing hair and maybe some droppings, so that's really encouraging. But the visibility just dropped to not so high. So kind of just meandering our way back towards where we came from, and hopefully it'll clear up and we can do some more looking. Getting back out there to hunt goats on Kodiak was super emotional for me. Just because you have those fears and you want to go back there and have a more positive experience. But really just going back to Kodiak was huge for me. Like, I had not been back since I left in a medevac plane to have emergency surgery.
Trying to hunt in the fog is one thing, you can't see the goats, but more importantly, trying to pick your route back to camp and everything through the fog, or you can't see a couple hundred yards, so if you need to go up here to avoid this cliff, or I mean, you end up doing a lot of turnarounds in the fog if you don't, can't really plan your route very well. So it's kind of
And it could be dangerous too. I mean, you could end up someplace you really didn't want to be because you couldn't see the route that you were trying to pick.
I haven't seen those two yet.
Awesome. They're blocky too.
Yeah, I think those two are Billy's.
Yeah, I think so.
I kidded throughout this trip that I only wanted to look for goats in places that I was willing to go after them. And I had picked out a spot that I thought was pretty nice. I mean, it was still up a pretty steep grade, but it didn't involve any death-defying stunts to get over there.
We hiked over, I'd say at least 5 or 6 different peaks through all kinds of varied terrain, from glacier bowls, over huge rock crevices, through all kinds of, everything Alaska has to offer all in one tight little location.
Mountain hunting has a pretty unique set of challenges in terms of terrain, in terms of distance. Well, unless you're lucky enough to see a goat on the hill right above the tent, you pretty much have to get to where the goats are, and that involves gaining some elevation. The difference between a mountain hunt and a coastal hunt, or a hunt that's nearer to flat ground, is that you're always gaining elevation. So it just requires a lot more work to get where you're going. And then the chances of finding water up there can be water or maybe not. There's a lot of craggy rocks, and actually sometimes the rocks are safer to walk on than the grassy areas, because once that grass freezes and then thaws again, it becomes really, really slippery, and that's how I got hurt.
Key is to be in shape. Definitely be in shape, have good equipment, test that equipment thoroughly before you head out there. It's one thing to afford the best equipment there is, but if you don't know what you're doing with it, once you get out there, it's not going to do you a bit of good. I'm fortunate I live on the side of a mountain in Eagle River, and I'm able to get out, after work and on weekends, and any piece of equipment I buy, I go up and try out a couple times before I ever head out on a hunt.
Crampons are pretty much a must for us hunting Kodiak. There is high alpine grass that can get really wet, and that definitely contributed to the accident that I had there 3 years ago. And so we pretty much wore our crampons anytime we were outside the tent.
A lot of people hear crampons and they think you're hiking up a glacier or something like that, but for the most part, you're just trying to stay locked into the vegetation so you're not slipping and sliding. It's just an extra safety precaution, and I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer to stay locked on the mountain as much as possible. And same thing with the trekking poles and ice axes. It gives you a couple extra points of contact to lock yourself on there and keep you on the mountain. We're looking at these 2 guys right here, and then 3 more right here. They're about, I don't know, a half mile apart from each other across the bowl. They're both, you could walk to them. It's just the difficulty's always in the stock, so now it's just a question of, do we want to go up or over?
The thing is, I think, you might be able to see better from this next higher rise right there. And I think you can get up, you can get up on top either way from there, so.
Oh, this one over here is our left?
Yeah.
That'll be the vantage point.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, because then we also can't see what's back in this bowl on the side either.
Right.
With Becca, it was pretty unique because she had been there the season before with her husband on her first goat hunt, and ended up falling, slid down a mountain and broke her leg and had to be medevaced out. So this was kind of a revenge for her and a second chance. Never been to Kodiak. That was the first time, and I had read a lot about it and heard a lot about it, so it definitely lived up to its expectations. I've heard that the weather can be extreme at times, and we had a little bit of that. Throughout the time we were there, it changed from that to beautiful sun and back to, fogged in, socked in, spending time in the tents. First couple days we were there, we just started getting high and trying to glass all over the place, and we could see goats from camp, but the first 2 big ridges we went up, we couldn't, we ended up coming into big crevasses and couldn't get over them, and just couldn't get up to the goats.
We were close. There's always tomorrow, but yeah, you didn't know how lucky he was.
We took off from camp early that morning. We had seen the goats the night before, and we wanted to get an early start and get over there and see if they were in the same place.
We were seeing more and more goats As the trip progressed, we'd kind of figured out maybe where they were hanging out.
And sure enough, we got over there and started glassing different routes and ways we could get up to them. And they were in some of the roughest part of the country, which is typical for goats.
Just the backside, I can see that peak right there. It looks gnar.
Just as we were getting into the area where these goats were, Luke had decided to split up with us and go up to the top of a ridge and do some glassing on his own and see if he could find a way for us to get up there easy. And just as he disappeared, we look across the valley and there's a huge grizzly bear. And you know, he was probably 3 miles away, and you could tell he was just a horse. He looked like a Volkswagen coming down the mountain. And he just kept coming. You know, at one point he stuck his nose up in the air and was sniffing around, and the wind was blowing from us to him, and all of a sudden he took off running towards us, and nobody could quite figure out, you know, what he had smelled, if it was us or something else, and we were sure hoping it wasn't us.
That was actually a little scary because it was a large grizzly bear, and I knew that Luke had gone around to look over this next drainage, and he didn't have a rifle with him. So our group is separated, we've got no way to talk to each other, and Luke doesn't have a gun, and this bear is just on a mission right for where we are.
And it didn't take him long to cross that valley. He covered 3 miles in a matter of about probably 5 minutes. He got a little closer than we wanted, I'll tell you that. Probably got within about 400 yards or so, and then caught our scent, I hope, and headed over into the next county. So all in all, it turned out well.
I think we're aiming for that rock wall, that big rock wall. That's where we go up.
Wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but man, they met every one of my expectations for a good hunting partner. You know, I'd heard rumors about Luke. I'd heard about, you know, what he was like, and the kid is an animal. You know, he's younger. He lives for this kind of stuff. He's, you know, I think we're going to become pretty good friends. We both love the same type of thing. You know, spending a week out there with him, you know, like I said, I wasn't sure what to expect. It was my first hunt with anybody other than my wife. And she's almost as much of a beast as Luke is.
I think it takes sort of getting to know you to a whole new level in terms of, you know, when you first meet someone, you're not sure how are they going to handle the physical aspects of the hunt, but how are they going to handle the emotional aspects of the hunt? You're trying to figure out, is this somebody who, you know, is physically capable, but also is this somebody who has the mental drive to keep climbing when they're tired and wet? Is this somebody that has the mental drive to pack back down the hill with a heavy pack? Is this somebody who's going to hold it together, or somebody that's going to lose their cool? And Cory ended up being an excellent hunting partner. He's not someone that we knew very well before we went to Kodiak, but he really, every step of the way was positive and encouraging. He hunted hard, but he was also making good decisions, and so we were thrilled to have Cory along.
700 yards. So Cory, where that rock canyon stops is 500 yards, and she's at 7. I think if we went up to that rock canyon, though, we wouldn't have a view of her. Yeah, it wouldn't be very good angle. We spotted them where she wanted to go get them, and they were in a good location where we could shoot them and retrieve them. But they were on the ridge line, and they could see our approach the whole way. So we kind of had to. We got within probably a half mile or so, and then just the whole climb up to where they're at, we would have been exposed. We kind of had to just wait there for them to feed over the top of the mountain before we could actually begin our final stalk.
So we started heading up the mountain once the goats went over the top, and Becca and Luke ended up going to the left, and I saw kind of where they were headed, and decided, you know, we made sure she was going to get the first shot since it was her revenge hunt, and I took off to the right and was getting in position. So once she took the shot, the first one to come over the ridge that was a decent billy I was going to take.
When we made our final push towards my goat, we knew there was more than one goat up there. And so it's a matter of trying to, trying to give both hunters the best opportunity to take a goat. You know, as soon as you start shooting, you know that some of those goats are going to run away. So it's trying to position everybody so that everybody has a good shot at a goat. And so when I went after my goat, Cory actually snuck around to the other side to try to anticipate where the rest of the goats were going to go, because we knew, once I fired my first shot that they were going to scatter.
Cory, take the upper one.
After she took her shot, just like clockwork, the goats did exactly what we thought they would, and they come up over the top a couple hundred yards away. And I was able to get one in the sights pretty quickly, and took the shot, and it was amazing. It was everything I'd ever thought all coming true in that one little moment, and it was pretty cool.
What a beautiful animal in an unforgiving place.
Going back there and being able to get a goat of my own and fly home commercial from the airport in Kodiak with that goat on the 2-year anniversary of my accident was pretty special. I think there's something special about being out in creation in the middle of nowhere where you're not sure anybody's ever been before. I think you learn things about yourself, and I think you learn things about the world just by being out there and seeing it. Life really slows down. You're away from TVs, you're away from cell phones, you're away from vehicles. You're going where you can go under your own power and exploring the world that way, and it's just totally different.